Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentle jammers, and especially you crazy Ludum Dare devs, to another edition of Larry Does Ludum, taking a look at another 3 delicious games from Ludum Dare number 38, the theme of which was A Small World. And today was going to be the end to the voting, where people could see their scores, and also how they rated in the bikini competition. I think Gerald, with his excellently braided man hair, is probably going to win the bikini competition, but I don't know. I'm not officially a bikini judge anymore. I was banned for doing things with goats in the pool. But the date of the finals for that has been pushed back to Friday because, well, games need more voting, so if you can vote on games, you should go do that. I'm not really allowed to, so I can't really help, and beyond that, people kind of got a little bit spicy when the YouTubers did that one time, so we kind of steer clear of that. So go vote on those games quickly, you don't have much time. Otherwise, the first game on our docket here today is a jam entry called Save the Little Planet by Igelinkar, or Igelinkar, and it's a game about an intrepid little planetary explorer who has to avoid the great and mighty space bat and collect a bunch of coins from a bunch of planets, and then do what kind of reminds me of a Super Mario Galaxy transport, like, thing in order to get between the planets, although it's kind of in a simplified 2D version. So we're gonna jump in here and do the stuff with the things. So here we are. We've started out on a lovely little planet filled with vines and coins, and that's basically the whole game, is that we just need to get through all of this and get the highest score that we possibly can, and then get to the finish line while trying to avoid getting killed, because there's these really hungry space bats, and I didn't recall from my survival training, like, I don't recall there being like space bats on the course, but they're there, and boy, are they just hungry for chupacabras and planetary explorers. There's really not a lot that I can do to stop them, to be honest. I've destroyed the universe. What have I done? No, Patsy. No, why would you do this? I thought we were friends. Alright. Suffice it to say that the physics in this game are a little bit wonky at times, but overall, like, this game isn't too much like this. I've actually had a pretty good time of it with this game up until now. My only hiccup that I've really run into is occasionally you get hung up like this on different parts of the environment, and then your HUD to tell you how much health you have goes on an adventure. Now this might be exploding a little bit because I'm running this on Chrome with my addiction to 1600 tabs, or it could be the fact that I'm playing this on full screen mode, recording it at the same time. Suffice it to say, but aside from that, we'll just talk about the core of what the game is doing. So basically, this is just a little adventure-y game where you try not to get touched by the space bats while also looking for sweet, delicious treasure. We're basically the Indiana Jones of space. And I kind of like it. I mean, there's something to be said about being able to explore planets in a very dumbed-down, cutesy, cartoony way that I think a lot of people always find very appealing. Otherwise, Super Mario Galaxy wouldn't have been so flippin' amazing, even to somebody like me who doesn't like 99.9% of all Mario games. I'm just not a fan of Mario. Like, it was really repetitive when I first played it when I was a child, and it hasn't gotten that much better since then. But I understand why they had to do it, I just don't have to like it necessarily. And while we're going out and looking for loot and things in our little adventure, we just have to avoid getting murdered by the locals. I mean, you can't really blame them. There's not a lot of stuff to eat on this planet. There's just people. Delicious, delicious people. And I mean, you know, people can be really flavorful, especially if you get some of those delicious Tennessee people. Those guys have got so many marinades in their bodies at all times that it is absolutely ridiculous. So the concept on its whole isn't bad. It's always just kind of curious what you might do with it. Because at present, this is just kind of like a wander about in a roguelike or a dungeon crawler type experience, just herping and derping and trying not to get eaten, and that's about the whole of it. It doesn't get really all that much more dynamic, aside from trying to fight with the game so that the actual terrain doesn't destroy you just because the physics are being a tad wonky. So I guess you could do a number of things. Like, you could have it be very much like I was saying with Mario, where you have to, you know, accomplish a certain task to save the universe. I won't go as far as to say gather up stars. That's pretty much thoroughly in Mario's court, even beyond the reference to the coins. But maybe it's like a galactic overlord who wants to enslave everybody, who has throughout the ages been enslaving a giant galaxy's worth of planets, minimizing them like a Doctor Who plot that I saw from one of the retro Doctor Who's, and then using those planets to further his evil gains. So he's got like all of them revolving around his evil murder palace that is somewhere in the depths of space. You have a lot of different directions that you could go with that, and it'd be interesting to see, because I think like there's something here. Because I don't know a lot of games that I've played that involve saving and rescuing and fighting on a bunch of different planets. That said, you'd probably want to make them a little bit bigger, depending on the planet that you're on, or maybe just clusters of planets of certain sizes. And that would give you free reign to create a bunch of different sort of alien-looking cultures. That would make things interesting. Now, I don't know about these powers. You'd have to add something for some slightly more interesting powers than just a space bow and arrow and a Kamehameha blast that is my other ability. Because I'm not really feeling the Kamehameha. Like, maybe if you had the ability to do, like, say, a sword slash, like you could get rewarded by the Princess of Time, like a super cool space sword, and it could shoot lasers, and it could also talk. Like, that could be the best and worst sidekick ever created, would be a talking space sword. If Borderlands is anything for me to go off of, talking weapons are either the best thing in the universe, or they make you want to buy a belt and a Batman cape on Amazon and autoerotic asphyxiate yourself a little too intensely. One of those things is probably what it'll result in. That said, I think it would be funny, and it would give you a lot of opportunity for humor in a game like this. But on the whole, I mean, it's got good art. I feel like I kind of want more pixel art, though. Because we got a lot of vector planets going on, and then we've got this lovely pixel art, and I think I want kind of one or the other, or just a better mix and match of each. Like, maybe the planets are kind of vectory, and then they're shaded with obvious pixel art or something. That, I think, would be a better combination, but it's not bad. It just strikes me as something that had limited time, almost like it was a part of a game jam. Who knew? And then, I don't know, what other kind of enemies would you do? Like, Cthulian enemies with tentacles would probably work. The space turtle, he's kind of a spicy bugger. You could definitely do, like, a space turtle. But beyond that, I mean, it's a literal series of small worlds that you have to get through in order to reach your eventual objective. So I think you're pretty solid on that, Mark. Not else really to say about it. It's pretty basic. Gather coins, shoot stuff. That's something that I've seen in a lot of, like, first-time game dev projects where coins are kind of the fallback. Although I really liked it in Default Dan, where they had the ability to make every coin kill you, because Default Dan was designed almost exclusively to mess with your brain parts. Ooh, this planet reminds me of something. This would be the perfect opportunity with a planet like this to make a planet that's entirely alive, like the planet is a person, and it wants to eat you unless you do it a favor. And boy, is it going to be a weird favor. We're talking about sponge bath favors, okay? It's not, no one wants to see that, but you're gonna have to do it. It's for the galaxy. So otherwise, a very nice job. I like where this is going so far. It's kind of fun and goofy in that sort of inherent humor that is jumping around on little planets and killing bats in a cartoony arcade way. So I wonder what you might do with this, or if you have any plans to expand upon this, because you could put any number of worlds in this. Alright, next up on our cavalcade of games here today, we have Stellar Twist, which is made by Rojo, or Rojo. I'm not sure if it's trying, that name is pronounced like the Spanish word for red or not, so your guess is as good as mine on pronunciation. Again, I am not the best person to be pronouncing foreign names, but this is a jam entry where Rojo or Rojo has taken the concept of a small world and combined it with the gameplay mechanics of a Rubik's Cube, where we have to run around this adorable little planet and we have to go and collect all the little stardust particles in order to open up a gate through time and space, and probably through that truck stop down the interstate a little ways, so that we can get to home, another place, or even another level in this particular game. And then we can occasionally hit different buttons in order to change the orientation of the planet. And that's basically the name of the game. It's using spatial orientation puzzles and the ability to, with the other joystick or set of keys on your computer, you can reorientate your camera's view angle so that you can get the best view angle that you can in order to see what you're trying to gather up. And it's interesting. I mean, I always liked the idea of these three-dimensional perspective puzzle games, because I'm a kind of person who is always really good at, like, three-dimensional puzzles. Any puzzle that involves getting your hands on it in 3 dimensions is usually a 10 out of 10 deal for me. But what I can say is that this game is one of those games that almost suffers from being a little too complex and a little bit too involved. Because there's a lot of little pieces here. And I mean, there's a lot of little pieces here. And you have to get every single one of them if you want to escape from this dimension. And this can involve having to combine multiple different perspective angles on this planet. So you have to, like, from the north face, you have to rotate it twice. Then you go to the southern face and rotate it once and stuff like that. And it can be a little bit confusing. And depending on the person, it can be very tedious. Like, it kind of reminds me a lot of Fez, not just because of the 3-dimensional mechanics, which Fez, I don't know if they pioneered it, but Phil Fish certainly did a lot of work to make it interesting for a lot of people. And that was a game where you went from, like, a really simplistic, down-to-earth starting level, and then all of a sudden they just throw, like, a bajillion things at you in the second level, and you know, depending on who you were, it was just very difficult to cope with that redonkulous learning curve. Oh wait, can I climb stuff? I didn't even flip and realize that I could climb things. Oh, that would explain how I'm supposed to get stuff off the tops of trees. But what I'm saying is that, like, these types of games, in a very subtle way, can get to be a little too complicated for most people to be able to handle. So I would just watch out for that sort of thing. Otherwise, like, I really like the concept. Like, I've always been a really big fan of these, like I was saying. And I think there's always a lot of room for improvement and a lot of different ideas that could be shared by showing people your take on a classic old game. Like, a friend of mine in college, my friend Victor, he worked with a company as their illustrator, and he was working on a game that was basically like drawing on the face of a cube so that none of the lines connected, like, crossed over one another, which is a very old type of game where you make them connect to different points on the screen. But then they did a couple of different things to make a twist out of the game that you would not have expected, and that's how you make a game like that into your own unique creature without having to worry about the things that everybody else has been doing with their time. That said, like, this almost immediately becomes kind of a tedious thing. Maybe you could change that with, like, different little aesthetic effects in the background of the game. For example, maybe there's just a bunch of cute little animals that are romping and frolicking around in this game while you explore it. This could be things like, you know, different little animals that you'd see in a game like Proteus. Proteus was a game that didn't have a lot going for it besides changing colors and some changing sounds. But at the same time, there was a lot of different ambiance effects going on, different ambient animals that you could scare away or interact with, that really sold the experience to me more than what it would have been on its own. I'm not really 100% sure if I am supposed to hop up on this. Maybe I have the wrong combination of thing. Oh, there we go. Okay, I got it. I got it, you guys. We're fine. Everything's cool. Larry's almost got all the star bits. But I feel like you just need some more mechanics in this to really flesh this out. And I think that the revolving three-dimensional planet that you actually have to worry about the 3D geometry of it is solid, and you should definitely run with it. Now, the other thing that might help with this is maybe if you just gave people a way that they could see where everything was a little bit better than this perspective, like maybe just a free-floating camera as opposed to a fixed perspective that I can only adjust in, you know, 4 different angles. That might improve things a little bit, because that's part of what I'm having trouble is trying to figure out, like, what orientation I need to get everything in so that I can finish this puzzle and move on. But those are all things that you can figure out in testing and development that you just didn't have a lot of time to do here because this was Ludum Dare. You only had a limited amount of time in order to do all the things. So I would also say that this game could do with like a subtle story to explain what the heck are you doing. Like, am I an explorer of different dimensions of time and space? Am I like a creature whose entire species likes to wander the infinite dimensional planes, and this is just how I get to school in the morning? Like, these are all the important questions that you can answer in order to add a certain level of intrigue to your game. Then maybe you could get some unlockable abilities that aren't necessarily abilities that damage things, but allow you to better manipulate time and space around yourself, and you'd be good to go. Like, that's a real winning combination, especially with such a clear-cut and identifiable concept as a manipulatable, like, three-dimensional planet. So very nice work, Rojo. I really like where this is going, and I think you should totally expand upon it. Oh, and the other thing is, maybe do, like, either pseudo 3D graphics for this, or make our little character look properly 3D. Because one of the things that's been throwing me off is that this character, for some reason when I look at it, sometimes I'll be hovering over the back of something, and I wouldn't really be able to see my shadow to tell where I am in space. And because I got like a 2D pixelated looking character that doesn't obviously look like it's 3D, it's very hard to orient myself in three-dimensional space sometimes. So aside from that, like, everything else is really consistent and solid, and I like it. Just, you know, add a few things, and I think this is something that I could see on the Steam store in the indie category in the not-too-distant future. You just gotta, you know, give people a world that they can just get lost in, kind of a deal. Alrighty, last up on our docket today, we have Space Aliens Are Coming. This is a compo entry created by Reality Check, who has participated in, well, 6 Ludum Dares, only completed 3 of those games, and this is another game that involves a small planet that we are exploring / defending, where we have to protect this cute little planet from roving, invading space aliens who want to steal all of our lovely citizens here and take them away and probably probe them. I mean, I don't know a lot of aliens that aren't in for a good probing on the weekend, and we need to defend these people because they are building a rocket here which will go out into space and blow up all the space aliens. It's right up there with the rings from Halo that kill all life in the galaxy and then bring it back to life because we couldn't just target the one form of life. So we're just gonna kill everybody. Like, I'm sure there's some nice aliens out there, but because they didn't, like, send us an email that their friends from Galbanex that were gonna come and steal our friends, we have got to stop them. And in order to do that, we just shoot them with a bazooka that looks an awful lot like a bong. And I only say that because the exploding stuff kind of looks like bong water after it hits the different UFOs here. And it's actually interesting that you do get a little bit of time to defend your little people because they have to suck them up into the UFO and then fly away. And if you blow it up before they escape Earth's, or whatever planet this is, atmosphere, they fall back to the planet. Also, they can kidnap us, which I can't imagine ends well, but I haven't given it the old college try yet. And then, of course, if you find that you've lost a couple of citizens, occasionally they go and have sex in one of these houses with their wife or husband or whoever's in there, and they make more. Then periodically they work on this rocket, and once you get to 100 units of stuff, you launch the rocket and save the world. It's great. It's 10 out of 10 material. Now, my only complaint about this game, for gameplay-wise, is that this bazooka only shoots as far as your mouse is. So if your mouse is like right in front of you, that's as far as your bazooka goes. And I thought, like, if that killed me initially because I lost all my people, and I'm not versed in rocket science enough to really, you know, work on a rocket. It's not really a thing I'm allowed to do. So I ended up dying because they took all my people, and then I got taken. It's not the best. So maybe just like a projectile that just goes off into a set distance or into infinity after you fire it would be nice. Now, I thought it was an interesting challenge when you actually had to be careful that you didn't hit a person, because that would actually stop your bullet from actually hitting the UFO. And unfortunately, sometimes there's just too many UFOs for me to deal with in a given time. Otherwise, I think this is a solid enough way of interpreting the game jam. Let me just launch this missile real quick. Because it's an actual little planet, you're defending it with a bong bazooka, and that's all you need to do. The graphics are not crazy, but they don't need to be. I think the only thing that bugs me is some of the buildings, when they're 1080p size or 1440p size, are a little bit blurry, and some of the buildings aren't, so maybe some vector action going on there, using some font files for the fonts so that they scale real nice. But those are just kind of little niggling things that I'm talking about. But what you could do with this game is, this is definitely another one of those games that feels very Space Invader-y. Like you're fighting evil space invaders. So maybe you're like a space cop, and you're helping different planets to deploy their space defense systems. And you have to, you know, stop a certain number of waves, almost like a tower defense game, of aliens from coming and killing people. And the best way to do that is to just shoot them out of the sky. So that would allow you to unlock different weapons that you could do to shoot them out of the sky. You could have different weapons that you could put in place to automatically shoot some of them out of the sky. Lots of options here. And then you could introduce like different types of planets with different types of citizens, with different types of cultures and different behaviors. Like maybe they don't reproduce. Maybe you only get a bajillion of them, but you also have to deal with like a bajillion aliens trying to suck them up and steal them at the same time. And then you could have a bunch of different things that are trying to attack you. You could have, like, maybe there's aliens that come and try to take pictures with them, like Asian tourists that like come together in like a tight-knit group and they try to take a selfie, but when they take a selfie, you get stolen into the camera. And you have to take the camera to the Walgreens to get it developed so you can free the people trapped inside. But those aliens don't come very often, so you have plenty of time to react to them. I don't know, you got lots of funky, arcadey options, and I think you should totally investigate that. I also like the idea that you're literally watching people, like, have sex, produce kids, the kids get sent to school, all while you're trying to stop an invading alien menace. Like, that's the most bureaucratic thing I've ever seen for a Space Invader-y type game. And I find that oddly humorous. Like, I just like that for some reason. Just the idea of people living their lives. Yeah, people just get probed all the time. It's not weird. That's just Saturday. Except for Uncle Jerry. Like, Uncle Jerry is just into, like, that a little too much. He keeps proffering his booty into the air and saying, "Pick me, pick me." We think he maybe needs to see a therapist, but no one really wants to call him on it in public. So, here we are. So yeah, nice work. I like it. I also kind of get the vibe like these are the Who's down in Whoville from like the Dr. Seuss universe, like just something about the fact that they got these little nerps on their heads and everything. I get a very like Dr. Seuss character type of vibe from this. So nice job, Reality Check. I got to give a lot of these Space Invaders a great many reality checks, as they tried to steal all of my juicy citizens. I only hire the juiciest, though. All of those dry, boring citizens have to stay home. So yeah, good stuff. Keep up the good work. And that'll be it for this one, this particular round of Larry Does Ludum. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'm gonna keep doing these videos even for a while after voting period has ended. I'm gonna take a break from the regular videos where I take from my list, and instead I'm actually going to hit up the winners page and play some of the different games that actually won for different categories. And then the other thing I've been thinking about what to do, and I might do like an interview or something, is I'm thinking about doing like a video with Jupiter Hadley and the Button Masher Bros, where we talk about what it's like covering these jams and how other intrepid people, both from the game dev community and from outside the game dev community, can engage with this game jam and create cool videos and talk about the games that they love. So until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody. It might be a little late now because I've literally got hundreds of submissions on the list, but if you want to try to throw your stuff onto the list for me to showcase, by all means, I'm more than willing, or throw them in the comments of the videos, whatever. And I'll catch you next time. Have a good one, everybody, and toodaloo.